Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Excluded Guest. Ryan Fletcher stood in his own kitchen, staring at the calendar on the refrigerator where his wife Chloe had circled her birthday in bright red ink just 2 weeks ago. The date was tomorrow, and he'd been planning to surprise her with the vintage necklace he'd been saving for months to buy. But 30 minutes ago, everything had changed with a single overheard phone conversation. "No, Mom, I told you. Ryan doesn't need to know about the party," Chloe had whispered into her phone, thinking he was still in the garage. "It's better this way. Troy will be there, and you know how Ryan gets about him." Troy Brennan, the name that had been cropping up in conversations for the past 6 months. Chloe's friend from her yoga class, who somehow needed constant help with his marketing business. Ryan had met Troy twice, and each time, something had felt off about the way the man looked at his wife. Ryan Fletcher wasn't the type of man who ignored his instincts. At 42, he'd built his private security consulting firm from nothing, learning to read people and situations with surgical precision. His military background had taught him patience, strategy, and most importantly, when to strike and when to wait. He'd grown up in foster care after his parents died in a car accident when he was 8. Every family that took him in eventually sent him back, teaching him early that loyalty was rare and betrayal was common. By 18, he'd learned to rely only on himself. The Army had given him purpose, structure, and skills that served him well in civilian life. When he'd met Chloe Peterson 7 years ago at a charity fundraiser, she'd seemed different. She came from money. Her family owned a chain of boutique hotels across the Pacific Northwest. Beverly Peterson, Chloe's mother, had made it clear from the beginning that Ryan wasn't good enough for her daughter. New money, she'd sniffed when Chloe first brought him home, is never the same as breeding. But Chloe had seemed to love him genuinely, or so he believed. They'd married after 2 years, and for a while, Ryan thought he'd finally found the family he'd never had. He should have known better. Now, as he listened to his wife coordinate a birthday party that he wasn't invited to, Ryan felt the familiar cold settle in his chest, the same feeling he'd had as a child when another family decided he wasn't worth keeping. "Make sure the private dining room at the Harbor Club is set for 8, Chloe continued. "Troy, my sister Amanda, you, Dad, and Uncle Richard. Oh, and Troy's bringing his friend Malik. Apparently he's some kind of wine expert. 8 people. His wife's birthday party, and he wasn't even a consideration." Ryan quietly moved to the doorway and watched his wife pace their living room, her blonde hair catching the afternoon light. She looked beautiful, as always, but there was something in her expression he'd never seen before. Excitement, anticipation, almost giddiness. She was planning something special, and it wasn't for him. "Mom, I need you to promise me something," Chloe said, lowering her voice even further. "If Ryan asks where I am tomorrow night, just tell him I'm having a quiet dinner with you. Nothing more." Ryan stepped back into the kitchen as the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just about excluding him from a party. Chloe was actively lying to him, coordinating with her mother to deceive him. And Troy Brennan was clearly more than just a friend from yoga class. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to the contact he'd hoped he'd never need to use. Marcus Webb had been his teammate in Afghanistan, and now ran a discreet investigation service in Seattle. If Ryan was right about what was happening, he needed proof before he acted. "Marcus, it's Ryan Fletcher. I need a favor, and I need it done quietly and quickly." "What's the situation?" "My wife. I think she's having an affair, and I need to know everything. Who, what, when, where, and how long it's been going on. Can you have someone on it by tonight? Consider it done. I'll have my best people on it." "Ryan, if what you suspect is true, what are you planning to do about it?" Ryan looked through the doorway at his wife, who was now laughing at something the person on the other end of the line had said. The sound that had once brought him joy now felt like nails on glass. "That depends on what you find, Marcus. But I want you to know, if she's betrayed me, I won't be taking her back. And I won't be going easy on anyone involved." "Understood. I'll call you tomorrow night with what we find." Ryan hung up and walked back to the garage, where he kept his weights and his punching bag. He needed to think, and he needed to prepare. If Chloe was cheating, if her family was helping her hide it, if Troy Brennan was sleeping with his wife, then they had no idea what they'd unleashed. Ryan Fletcher had learned long ago that loyalty was earned and betrayal was punished. He'd given Chloe 7 years of unwavering faithfulness, protected her, provided for her, loved her completely. If she'd thrown that away for Troy Brennan, then she was about to learn why Ryan Fletcher's enemies in both the military and business world had learned to fear his name. As he wrapped his hands and began working the heavy bag, Ryan smiled for the first time that day. Tomorrow night, while his wife celebrated her birthday with her lover and her family, he'd be planning their destruction. Some lessons, he'd learned, could only be taught through pain. Chapter 2. The Smirking Mother-in-Law. The next evening, Ryan sat in his home office, watching the tracker app on his phone as Chloe's car made its way to the Harbor Club. She'd left 2 hours ago, claiming she was going to have a quiet dinner with her mother to celebrate her birthday. She'd even kissed him goodbye and said she loved him. The lie had rolled off her tongue so easily that Ryan wondered how many others he'd missed over the years. At 7:30 p.m., Marcus's surveillance photos started arriving on his secure phone. The first showed Chloe walking into the Harbor Club's private dining room, wearing the red dress Ryan had bought her for their anniversary. The second showed Troy Brennan's hand on the small of her back as he guided her to her seat. The third showed them kissing, not a friendly peck, but a deep, passionate kiss that made Ryan's jaw clench. But it was the fourth photo that made his blood run cold. Chloe and Troy, along with Beverly, Amanda, and 3 other people Ryan didn't recognize, were raising champagne glasses in a toast. And on Chloe's finger was a ring Ryan had never seen before, a massive diamond engagement ring on her right hand. His phone rang. "Marcus, Ryan, you need to see what we captured on audio. My guy got close enough to pick up their conversation. Send it." The audio file arrived a minute later. Ryan played it through his headphones, and what he heard made him understand that this betrayal was far worse than a simple affair. Beverly's voice came through clearly. "Well, darling, now that you've finally decided to leave that military nobody, we can start planning the real wedding. Troy's family trust will blend beautifully with ours." Troy's voice. "Chloe, baby, I know you've been worried about the timing, but my lawyer says we can file for divorce on grounds of incompatibility. You'll get half his business value, and once we're married, we can buy him out entirely. By Christmas, Fletcher Security will be Brennan Peterson Consulting." Chloe's laugh. "I just feel bad about deceiving Ryan for so long. But you're right, he served his purpose. His business contacts in government security will be valuable, and now that he's built the company up, it's worth enough to give us a nice start." Amanda's voice. "Chloe, you've been slumming it with that foster kid for 7 years. You deserve someone from your own background. Troy gets you in a way Ryan never could." Beverly again. "To think I had to smile and pretend to tolerate that man at family dinners. Well, at least we'll never have to see him again after the divorce. We reserved spaces for real family members only. He was just the husband, not actual blood." The audio continued with them discussing how they'd already spoken to a divorce attorney, how they planned to make Ryan look unstable to get a better settlement, and how Troy's connection to several government contracts would help them steal Ryan's clients. Ryan pulled off his headphones and sat in silence for 10 minutes, processing what he'd heard. This wasn't just an affair, it was a coordinated theft of his life, his business, and his future. Chloe hadn't fallen in love with someone else. She'd cold-bloodedly decided to upgrade to a man her family considered more suitable, and she planned to rob him blind in the process. Worse, they were all in on it. Beverly, Amanda, even people he'd considered extended family were actively plotting against him. They'd been laughing at him, looking down on him, planning his destruction while accepting his hospitality and his love. Ryan walked to his safe and pulled out a burner phone he kept for emergencies. He scrolled through the contacts until he found the number he needed. Colonel Patricia Hayes had been his commanding officer in Afghanistan and now worked in military intelligence. She owed him several favors. "Hayes, Colonel, it's Ryan Fletcher. I need to call in a favor, and it's urgent." "What do you need, Ryan?" "I need you to run a complete background check on someone named Troy Brennan, age approximately 35, lives in Seattle, claims to run a marketing business. I need to know everything: financials, criminal history, military record, if any, family connections, everything." "This sounds personal." "It is. And Patricia, if you find anything actionable, anything that can be used, I need to know tonight." "Ryan, you're scaring me a little. What are you planning?" "Justice. These people think they can destroy me because I came from nothing. They're about to learn that coming from nothing means I have nothing to lose. I'll call you in 2 hours." Ryan hung up and walked to his bedroom, where he opened another safe hidden behind a false wall. Inside were documents, cash, and items from his military days that he'd hoped never to use again. But some tools were worth keeping, just in case. His phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. "Dinner with Mom running late. Don't wait up. Love you." Ryan stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Have fun. We'll talk tomorrow." It would be their last conversation as husband and wife. Tomorrow, Chloe Peterson Fletcher would learn that betraying Ryan Fletcher was the worst mistake of her privileged life. And Beverly Peterson was about to discover that blood meant nothing when honor was absent. Ryan had been patient, loyal, and forgiving his entire adult life. But some lines, once crossed, meant war. And war was something Ryan Fletcher understood very, very well. As he began making a list of everything he knew about each person who had betrayed him, Ryan smiled coldly. They wanted to play games with a man they considered beneath them? Perfect. He'd show them exactly what this foster kid was capable of when pushed too far. The real party was about to begin. Chapter 3. The phone call that changed everything. At 11:47 p.m., Colonel Hayes called back with information that made Ryan's plans shift from simple revenge to total warfare. "Ryan, you need to be very careful with Troy Brennan. He's not just a marketing consultant. He's been under federal investigation for the past 8 months. For what? Government contract fraud. He's been using his family's connections to bid on classified security contracts, then subcontracting the actual work to foreign entities while keeping the profits. The FBI thinks he's stolen approximately $12 million in taxpayer money over the past 3 years. Ryan felt a dark satisfaction building in his chest. What else? His marketing business is a front for money laundering. He takes dirty money from his foreign contacts and cleans it through fake consulting fees. And here's the kicker. He's been specifically targeting small security firms like yours to acquire their government clearances and client lists. So Chloe isn't just cheating. She's helping him commit federal crimes. It gets worse. We found communications between Brennan and someone named Beverly Peterson. She's been feeding him information about your business operations, your client list, and your security clearances. This isn't a romance, Ryan. It's industrial espionage. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. Beverly hadn't just been helping her daughter have an affair. She'd been actively working to destroy his business and potentially compromise national security. "How much evidence do you have?" "Enough to arrest them all tomorrow if we wanted to. But Ryan, we need this to play out a little longer to catch the bigger fish. Brennan's foreign contacts are more valuable than he is. What if I told you I could deliver them all to you on a silver platter, along with evidence of their plans to steal my business and their conspiracy to commit marriage fraud?" There was a pause. "I'd say you have my attention. Give me 2 weeks. I'll give you everything you need to prosecute them for espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. But I want something in return." "What?" "When you arrest them, I want to be there. I want to look each of them in the eye when they realize what they've done." "Ryan, what are you planning?" "I'm going to let them think they're winning. I'm going to help them hang themselves with their own rope. And then I'm going to watch their world burn." After he hung up with Colonel Hayes, Ryan made 3 more calls. The first was to his lawyer, David Kim, who specialized in both divorce and white-collar crime. The second was to his accountant, who began the process of moving his assets into protected accounts. The third was to Marcus Webb. "Marcus, I need you to do something that might sound crazy, but trust me on this." "What do you need?" "I need you to make me look vulnerable. Starting tomorrow, I want rumors to spread that my business is struggling, that I'm having financial problems, maybe drinking too much. I want Troy Brennan and my wife to think I'm falling apart." "Ryan, that could damage your reputation permanently. Not if it's all fabricated and we can prove it later." "Marcus, these people are planning to destroy me anyway. But if they think I'm already weak, they'll get overconfident and make mistakes." "What about your marriage?" "My marriage ended the moment Chloe decided to betray me. Now I'm just documenting the evidence." Over the next hour, Ryan began implementing his plan. He sent emails to several clients, postponing meetings and citing personal issues. He called in sick to a scheduled security consultation. He even ordered alcohol to be delivered to his house, though he had no intention of drinking it. Most importantly, he began leaving traces of evidence that would make it look like he was investigating Chloe's affair, but doing it badly, like a jealous, unstable husband who was falling apart. He wanted them to think he suspected something, but couldn't prove it. At 2 a.m., Chloe finally came home. She tried to be quiet, but Ryan was waiting. "How was dinner with your mom?" he asked from the kitchen. Chloe jumped, not expecting him to be awake. "Oh, Ryan, you scared me. It was nice, just the two of us. You know how mom gets when she wants to talk. Did you have a good birthday?" "It was lovely. Quiet, but lovely." She kissed his cheek, and Ryan smelled Troy Brennan's cologne on her skin. "I'm sorry I didn't get to take you out properly. We should plan something special for this weekend." Chloe's smile faltered for just a moment. "Actually, I might be busy this weekend." "Troy. You remember Troy from yoga. He's asked me to help him with a business presentation. It might take most of Saturday." "Of course. Troy seems to need a lot of help with his business. He's not as experienced as you are. He could learn a lot from someone like you, actually." Ryan smiled. "Maybe I should meet with him. Give him some advice." The look of panic that flashed across Chloe's face was so brief that someone who didn't know her as well as Ryan did might have missed it. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary. He's kind of shy around successful men. I think he'd be intimidated." "Intimidated by me? I'm just a foster kid who got lucky, remember?" Chloe's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Just something your mother said once. That I was lucky to have married above my station." "Ryan, you know I don't feel that way." "I know," Ryan said, though they both knew it was a lie. "I'm going to bed. I love you, Chloe. I love you too." As Ryan climbed the stairs, he felt a cold satisfaction. In 2 weeks, Chloe Peterson Fletcher, Troy Brennan, Beverly Peterson, and everyone else who had betrayed him would be in federal custody. Their lives would be destroyed, their reputations ruined, their freedom gone. And Ryan Fletcher would be standing there watching, finally free of the people who had considered him disposable. The game had begun, and they had no idea they were already losing. Chapter 4. The Web of Lies Unravels. Over the next week, Ryan played the role of the deteriorating husband perfectly. He missed a client meeting, citing a family emergency. He left empty liquor bottles visible in his home office trash. He even had Marcus spread rumors at the gym that Ryan was acting strange and paranoid about his wife. Meanwhile, Colonel Hayes' team documented every move Troy Brennan made. They recorded him meeting with foreign contacts, photographed him accessing classified databases using stolen credentials, and traced money transfers through his fake consulting company. But it was Beverly Peterson who provided the most damning evidence. Thinking Ryan was falling apart and would soon be out of the picture, she became careless. Hayes' surveillance caught her photographing documents from Ryan's home office when she came by to check on Chloe's well-being. "She took pictures of your client list, your security clearances, and your financial statements," Marcus reported on Friday afternoon. "She also planted a listening device in your office." Ryan felt a surge of cold rage. Beverly hadn't just been enabling her daughter's affair. She'd been actively spying on him in his own home, violating his privacy and potentially compromising national security. Has Chloe been acting differently? She's getting bolder. Yesterday, she told you she was shopping with Amanda, but she spent the afternoon at Troy's apartment. They're getting sloppy because they think you're falling apart. That evening, Chloe announced that she wanted to spend the weekend at her mother's house. "You seem stressed, Ryan. Maybe some space would be good for both of us." "Are you sure? I was hoping we could work on things. I think time apart might help us both get perspective." Ryan nodded sadly, playing the part of the confused, hurt husband. "If that's what you need." After Chloe left, Ryan activated the secondary security system he'd installed without her knowledge. Every room in the house now had hidden cameras and microphones that fed to an encrypted server. If anyone came into his home while he was gone, he'd have evidence. Saturday morning, he staged an elaborate performance at a coffee shop near Troy's apartment. He sat at a table with a direct view of the building entrance, making it obvious he was watching. He even took some photos with his phone, making sure other customers could see he was acting like a jealous husband conducting amateur surveillance. Within an hour, Troy and Chloe spotted him. They looked panicked, hurried back inside, and within minutes, Ryan's phone was ringing. "Ryan, what the hell are you doing?" Chloe's voice was sharp with panic. "I don't know what you mean. I'm just having coffee. You're following me. This is crazy behavior." "Chloe, I was just..." "No, this ends now. I'm coming home, and we're going to talk about getting you some help." Ryan smiled as he hung up. Perfect. Now they thought he was unstable but incompetent, a desperate husband who couldn't even conduct proper surveillance. When Chloe arrived home that afternoon, she was accompanied by Beverly and Troy. Ryan opened the door to find all three of them on his doorstep, looking like an intervention committee. "Ryan," Beverly said with false concern, "we need to talk about your behavior." "My behavior?" "Following Chloe around, drinking, missing work. This isn't healthy." Troy stepped forward, and Ryan got his first close look at the man who was sleeping with his wife. Troy was tall, handsome in a privileged way, with perfectly styled hair and expensive clothes. He looked like someone who had never faced real consequences for anything. "Mr. Fletcher, I'm Troy Brennan. Chloe's told me a lot about you." Ryan shook his hand, noting the expensive watch and the soft hands that had never done physical labor. "Troy, the marketing consultant, among other things. Look, I think there might be some confusion here. Chloe and I are just friends. But your surveillance today made everyone uncomfortable." "I wasn't surveilling anyone. I was just having coffee." Beverly scoffed. "Really, Ryan? Sitting outside Troy's building with a camera? That's stalking behavior." "I think," Chloe said carefully, "that maybe you should speak to someone. A counselor, maybe. This jealousy isn't healthy." Ryan looked at the three of them standing in his living room, united against him, and felt the familiar cold settle in his chest. But this time, it wasn't hurt, it was anticipation. "You know what? You're right. I have been acting strange lately. Maybe I should get some help." The relief on their faces was obvious. "In fact," Ryan continued, "maybe we should all talk to someone. Together. As a family." "What do you mean?" Beverly asked suspiciously. "Well, if I'm having problems, and it's affecting our marriage, maybe we should all sit down with a counselor and work through this as a family. You, me, Chloe, even Troy if he's such a good friend." Troy and Chloe exchanged glances. This wasn't what they'd expected. "I don't think that's necessary," Troy said quickly. "Really? But you seem so concerned about my well-being. Surely you'd want to help save my marriage." "Of course, but..." "Great. I'll set something up for next week. We can all sit down and talk about honesty, trust, and family loyalty." As the three of them left, Ryan could see them whispering urgently on his front porch. They were scared, and they should be. Because in a few days, Colonel Hayes would be ready to make arrests. And when that happened, Ryan wanted them all in the same room. That night, he called Colonel Hayes with an update. "They're getting nervous. I think we should move the timeline up." "Agreed. Brennan's foreign contacts are planning something big for next Friday. We want to grab everyone before then." "Perfect. I'll make sure they're all together when you come calling." "Ryan, are you sure you want to be there for this? It's going to get ugly." Ryan thought about Beverly's smirk, about Chloe's lies, about Troy's arrogant assumption that he could steal another man's life without consequences. "Colonel, I've been looking forward to this moment for 8 years." Because Ryan Fletcher had learned long ago that betrayal always came with a price. And he was finally ready to collect. Chapter 5, The Family Meeting. Monday morning, Ryan called Chloe with a proposition that made her voice tight with worry. "I've scheduled a family counseling session for Thursday evening. Dr. Sarah Morrison comes highly recommended for marital issues involving trust problems." "Ryan, I don't think that's necessary." "Chloe, if our marriage is going to work, we need to address the elephant in the room. You, me, your mother who clearly has opinions about our relationship, and Troy, since he seems to be such a close friend that you spend more time with him than with me." There was a long silence. "You want Troy to come to our marriage counseling?" "Well, if he's just a friend, then he should want to help us work through this, right? Unless there's some reason he wouldn't want to discuss our marriage in front of a professional counselor." Ryan could practically hear the panic in Chloe's breathing. I'll have to ask him." "Great. I'll send you the address. Dr. Morrison's office is downtown, very discreet." "Oh, and Chloe, I think your mother should come too. She's been so concerned about my behavior lately, and she's part of the family." After he hung up, Ryan called Colonel Hayes. "Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Morrison Building downtown, Suite 1200. They'll all be there." "Are you sure about this, Ryan? It's going to be brutal. They made their choice when they decided to betray me. I'm just giving them the chance to face the consequences together, like the family they claim to be." Tuesday and Wednesday, Ryan continued his performance as the unstable, drinking husband. He had flowers delivered to Chloe at work with a card that read, "I'm sorry for being suspicious. I just love you so much it scares me." He called Beverly to thank her for caring enough to stage an intervention and promised to work on his trust issues. Most importantly, he made sure Troy Brennan knew about the counseling session. "I really appreciate you agreeing to come. Ryan said when he called Troy directly. It means a lot that Chloe has such supportive friends who want to help our marriage succeed. Troy's voice was strained. Of course, anything to help. I'm really looking forward to clearing the air between all of us. I think there have been some misunderstandings, and it'll be good to get everything out in the open. Thursday evening arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle weather that matched Ryan's mood. He arrived at the Morrison building early and took the elevator to the 12th floor, where Colonel Hayes and her team were waiting in what looked like a normal counseling office. You sure you want to go through with this? Hayes asked one final time. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. At exactly 7 p.m., Chloe, Beverly, and Troy arrived together. Ryan watched them through the one-way glass as they approached the office, noting how Beverly kept checking her phone and how Troy's hand rested possessively on Chloe's lower back. Dr. Morrison was actually Agent Janet Cooper, a trained interrogator who specialized in family dynamics and marital counseling. She'd agreed to help with this operation because the national security implications were significant. Thank you all for coming, Agent Cooper said as they settled into the comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Ryan has asked for this session because he feels there are trust issues in the marriage that need to be addressed. Why don't we start with everyone introducing themselves and explaining their role in this family dynamic? Beverly spoke first. I'm Beverly Peterson, Chloe's mother. I've been concerned about my daughter's marriage because Ryan has been exhibiting some disturbing behaviors lately, such as drinking, paranoia, following my daughter around. I'm worried about her safety. Agent Cooper nodded and made notes. Troy, how do you fit into this family dynamic? Troy shifted uncomfortably. I'm a friend of Chloe's. We met at yoga class. I think Ryan might have gotten the wrong impression about our friendship. What kind of wrong impression? He seems to think there's something romantic between us, which there isn't. Ryan almost laughed. Even now, faced with a counselor, Troy was still lying. Chloe, how would you describe your relationship with Troy? Chloe looked like she wanted to run. He's a good friend. Someone I can talk to when things at home get difficult. And what makes things difficult at home? Ryan's been very suspicious lately, questioning where I go, who I see. It's suffocating. Agent Cooper turned to Ryan. Ryan, how do you respond to these concerns? I think, Ryan said carefully, that there are some truths that need to come out in this room. And I think everyone here knows what those truths are. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What do you mean? Chloe asked, her voice barely a whisper. I mean that we're all here under false pretenses. Chloe, you're not here to save our marriage. Beverly, you're not here because you're concerned about my drinking. And Troy, you're definitely not here as just a friend. Troy started to stand. I think this was a mistake. Sit down, Mr. Brennan. Agent Cooper's voice carried an authority that made Troy freeze. I think we should hear what Ryan has to say. Ryan pulled out his phone and played the audio recording from Chloe's birthday dinner. As their voices filled the room, Beverly's comment about real family members, Chloe's discussion of divorce plans, Troy's scheme to steal Ryan's business, the color drained from all three faces. That's a legal recording, Beverly stammered. Actually, Agent Cooper said, standing and pulling out her FBI credentials. What's illegal is conspiracy to commit espionage, government contract fraud, and money laundering. Troy Brennan, Chloe Fletcher, and Beverly Peterson, you're all under arrest. The doors opened and 6 federal agents entered the room. As they read the Miranda rights, Ryan stood and looked each of his betrayers in the eye. Ryan, Chloe whispered as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. How could you do this to me? How could I do this to you? Ryan's voice was ice cold. Chloe, you sold out your own husband to foreign agents. You helped steal classified information. You committed treason for a man you barely knew because your mother convinced you I wasn't good enough for your family. Troy was struggling against the agents. This is insane. I never. Troy Brennan, Colonel Hayes said, entering the room. You've been under federal surveillance for 8 months. We have evidence of $12 million in stolen government contracts, communication with foreign intelligence services, and conspiracy to commit espionage. You targeted Ryan Fletcher specifically to steal his security clearances and client information. Beverly was crying now, her makeup running down her cheeks. Ryan, please, think about what you're doing. Chloe is your wife. Ryan looked at the woman who had spent 7 years looking down on him, who had helped steal from him, who had smirked about excluding him from family because he wasn't real blood. Beverly, Chloe stopped being my wife the moment she decided to betray me. And you stopped being family the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for yours. But here's what you never understood. I didn't need your family. I just needed to know who my real enemies were. As they were led away in handcuffs, Ryan felt something he hadn't experienced since he was 8 years old. Complete and total satisfaction with justice served. Colonel Hayes put a hand on his shoulder. Feel better? Ask me again in 20 years when they get out of federal prison. Ryan Fletcher had learned that loyalty was rare and betrayal was common. But he'd also learned that patience, planning, and the truth were more powerful than any conspiracy. As he walked out of the building into the Seattle rain, Ryan smiled. Tomorrow, he'd start building his life again. But tonight, he'd finally gotten his family meeting. And it had gone exactly as planned. Chapter 6. The Reckoning Begins. The next morning, Ryan woke up in his empty house for the first time in 7 years and felt something unexpected: relief. The weight of pretending, of wondering, of living with people who despised him, it was gone. His phone had been ringing since 6 a.m. News of the arrests had broken overnight, and the story was explosive. Local security consultant's wife arrested in federal espionage ring. Ryan had turned off the ringer and let it go to voicemail. By noon, he'd received calls from 17 reporters, 43 clients, and every person he'd ever known in Seattle. But the call he'd been waiting for came at 12:47 p.m. Mr. Fletcher? This is attorney David Walsh. I represent your wife, Chloe Fletcher. Former wife. I filed for divorce this morning. Sir, my client is requesting to speak with you. She believes there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Your client committed espionage against the United States government and betrayed her marriage vows to steal my business. The only conversation I'm interested in having is through our respective attorneys. Mr. Fletcher, please understand that my client is facing potentially decades in federal prison. She's pregnant. Ryan felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. What did you say? She's 10 weeks pregnant. She found out 2 days ago and was planning to tell you after the counseling session. Ryan sat down heavily in his kitchen chair. Pregnant. Either the timing was a coincidence, or this was Chloe's final manipulation, getting pregnant to complicate the divorce and make him look heartless for abandoning a pregnant wife. Whose child is it? There was a pause. She claims it's yours. Claims. Mr. Fletcher, I have to ask, is there any possibility you would consider reconciliation? For the sake of the child. Ryan thought about the past 2 weeks, about the birthday party he wasn't invited to, about the years of Beverly's subtle insults, about Troy Brennan's plan to steal his life's work. He thought about Chloe lying to his face every day while planning his destruction. Mr. Walsh, let me be very clear. If that child is mine, I'll accept financial responsibility as required by law. But I will never reconcile with a woman who committed treason against her own country to be with another man. My loyalty was used against me once. It won't happen again. She's asking to see you. One conversation. No. Mr. Fletcher. No. Any communication goes through you to my attorney. David Kim at Kim & Associates. Good day. Ryan hung up and immediately called David Kim. David, I need an emergency meeting. Chloe's attorney just told me she's pregnant. Jesus, Ryan. This complicates things. Does it? She committed federal crimes. Pregnancy doesn't change that. No, but it changes public perception. And if you're the father, if I'm the father, I'll support the child. But I won't support the mother. Can we get a paternity test while she's in custody? I'll look into it. Ryan, are you sure about this? Walking away from a pregnant wife, even under these circumstances, is going to look brutal. David, my wife sold classified information to foreign agents and planned to steal my business. She chose Troy Brennan over her marriage and her country. I don't care how it looks. That afternoon, Marcus Webb arrived with boxes of surveillance evidence that would never be needed for the criminal trial. Thought you should see this, Marcus said, handing Ryan a tablet. We tracked Chloe's movements for the past 6 months. The pregnancy timeline is interesting. Ryan scrolled through the data. According to Marcus's surveillance, Chloe had been staying overnight at Troy Brennan's apartment at least twice a week for the past 3 months. 10 weeks pregnant put conception right in the middle of her heaviest affair period. There's more, Marcus said grimly. We found financial records. Troy Brennan had been giving Chloe money, $10,000 a month for the past 4 months. He was paying her to steal your information. Ryan felt his jaw clench. She was prostituting herself for government secrets. It gets worse. Remember Beverly's visit to your house last week? The listening device she planted? We found the recordings on Troy's computer. They've been monitoring your phone calls, your meetings with clients, everything. This wasn't just an affair, Ryan. It was organized theft. Ryan stood and walked to his window, looking out at the city where he'd built his life and his business. Somewhere out there, Chloe was sitting in a federal holding cell, pregnant with a child that might or might not be his, facing decades in prison for betraying everything she'd claimed to love. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want you to investigate everyone who knew about this. Chloe's sister Amanda was at that birthday dinner. Her father was there. I want to know who else was involved and who was just a bystander. You think there are more conspirators? I think the Peterson family operates as a unit. They've looked down on me for 7 years, and they were all too happy to help Chloe destroy me. I want to know how deep this goes. That evening, Ryan received an unexpected visitor. Amanda Peterson stood on his doorstep, tears streaming down her face. Ryan, please, can we talk? About what? About Chloe. About the baby. About how we can fix this. Ryan stepped aside and let her in, curious about what Chloe's younger sister could possibly say to justify the past few months. Amanda, your sister committed espionage. She sold classified information and planned to steal my business. She's facing 20 to 30 years in federal prison. There's nothing to fix. But she's pregnant with your child. Is she? Because according to my investigation, she's been sleeping with Troy Brennan for months and taking money from him to spy on me. Amanda's face crumpled. You don't understand. The family business is failing. Dad made some bad investments, and Mom borrowed against the hotels. We were going to lose everything. Ryan felt pieces clicking into place. So this was about money. Troy promised he could get government contracts worth millions if he had the right security clearances and client lists. He said marrying Chloe would give him access to your business, and the contracts would save our family. And Chloe agreed to this? She thought she was saving the family. She didn't know about the foreign agents or the illegal stuff. She thought Troy was just a successful businessman who could help us. Ryan stared at Amanda, realizing that Chloe's betrayal was even worse than he'd thought. She hadn't fallen in love with Troy Brennan. She'd cold-bloodedly decided to trade her marriage for money to save a family business that had always considered Ryan beneath them. Amanda, your sister didn't just have an affair. She participated in espionage against the United States government. She helped steal classified information. She committed treason. For money. Please, Ryan. She made a mistake, but she's family. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? Ryan thought about all the times Beverly had made subtle comments about his background, all the times he'd felt excluded from family gatherings, all the times he'd tried to win their acceptance only to be reminded that he wasn't real blood. Amanda, for 7 years, your family made it clear that I wasn't really part of your family. Now you want me to destroy my life to save someone who sold me out for money. But the baby, if the baby is mine, I'll be a father. But I will never again be part of a family that considers loyalty a weakness and betrayal a business strategy. As Amanda left, crying and defeated, Ryan felt something he'd never experienced before. Complete freedom from the need to belong somewhere he wasn't wanted. Tomorrow, he'd start building a new life. And if he was going to be a father, he'd teach his child something the Peterson family had never learned. That honor mattered more than money, and loyalty was not a commodity to be sold. Chapter 7. The Truth About Blood and Betrayal. 2 weeks later, Ryan sat in David Kim's office reviewing the paternity test results. The child Chloe was carrying was his, a fact that complicated everything and changed nothing. She's requesting supervised visitation, David said. She wants to discuss co-parenting arrangements. She's facing federal espionage charges. There won't be any co-parenting for the next 20 years. Ryan, the federal prosecutor, is offering her a plea deal. If she testifies against Troy Brennan and provides information about his foreign contacts, she could be out in 5 to 7 years. That's her choice to make. It doesn't change mine. David leaned back in his chair. I have to ask, is there any part of you that wants to reconcile? For the child's sake? Ryan thought about the question he'd been asking himself for 2 weeks. The child was innocent in all of this. But Chloe had made choices that couldn't be undone, crosses lines that couldn't be uncrossed. David, let me tell you a story. When I was 12, I was placed with a family called the Hendersons. Good people, church-going, middle class. They had a son about my age, Tommy. For 6 months, I thought I'd finally found a real family. What happened? Tommy started stealing things from neighbors and blaming me. At first, the Hendersons defended me. But when Tommy stole $100 from his grandmother's purse and planted it in my room, they believed him over me. They sent me back to the system without even letting me defend myself. Jesus. A year later, Tommy got caught stealing from his school and confessed to everything he'd blamed on me. Mrs. Henderson called the social worker and asked if they could take me back. She said they'd made a mistake, that they were sorry, that they wanted to make it right. Did you go back? No, because I learned that day that some betrayals can't be forgiven. When someone chooses to believe the worst about you despite all evidence to the contrary, when they throw you away at the first sign of trouble, they've shown you who they really are. And people don't change, David. They just reveal themselves. David was quiet for a moment. You think Chloe was always capable of this? I think Chloe was raised in a family that taught her that people like me were disposable. When she needed money and status, she did what came naturally. She traded up. The only surprise is that it took her 7 years. That afternoon, Ryan met with Colonel Hayes to review the final evidence that would be presented at trial. Brennan's cooperating now, Hayes said. He's giving us everything: names, bank accounts, contact methods. Apparently, Prison Orange doesn't suit him. What about the foreign agents? We rolled up the entire network. Brennan was small-time compared to what we found. This investigation is going to prevent some serious damage to national security. And Chloe, she's still claiming she didn't know about the foreign connection. Says she thought she was just helping Brennan compete for contracts. Do you believe her? Hayes showed Ryan a series of photographs. These are from Brennan's phone. Chloe, at dinner with one of the foreign agents. 3 different occasions over 2 months. She knew exactly what she was doing. Ryan studied the photos of his pregnant ex-wife sharing drinks and laughter with men who were actively working against American interests. In one photo, she was showing papers, documents he recognized from his own files. She was a willing participant, Hayes continued. Whatever she's telling her lawyer about being an innocent victim is bullshit. She knew she was committing espionage, and she did it anyway. That evening, Ryan returned home to find Beverly Peterson sitting in her car in his driveway. She got out as he approached, and he could see she'd been crying. Ryan, please. I need to talk to you. About what, Beverly? About my daughter. About my grandchild. About the mistake we've all made. Ryan unlocked his front door, but didn't invite her in. What mistake is that? We underestimated you. We thought you were just some poor kid who got lucky. We didn't realize you were dangerous. Dangerous? Beverly, I'm not the one who committed treason. But you set this up. You manipulated all of us into that room so the FBI could arrest us. Ryan turned to face the woman who had spent 7 years making him feel unwelcome at family gatherings, who had smirked about excluding him from Chloe's birthday party, who had actively spied on him in his own home. Beverly, I didn't manipulate anyone. I gave your daughter, your family, and Troy Brennan exactly what they asked for, an opportunity to show me who they really were. You all chose betrayal. I just documented it. But Chloe is pregnant with your child. Yes, she is. And that child will grow up knowing that their mother chose money and status over loyalty and family. That's not my fault, Beverly. That's yours. What do you mean? You raised Chloe to believe that people like me were temporary, disposable, not worthy of real loyalty. You taught her that family was about blood and money, not about honor and commitment. And when she needed to choose between her values and her bank account, your lessons won. Beverly was crying now. Ryan, please. I know we weren't perfect, but we can make this right. Chloe made a mistake, but she's still your wife, still the mother of your child. Beverly, Chloe didn't make a mistake. She made a series of calculated decisions over several months to betray her marriage, her country, and her values for money. That's not a mistake. That's a character revelation. But people can change. Can they? Beverly, if I offered you $1 million right now to hurt someone you cared about, would you do it? Of course not. Then why did your daughter? Why did she take money to steal classified information from the man she promised to love and honor? Beverly had no answer because there was no answer. Chloe had revealed who she really was when tested, and no amount of tears or apologies could change that reality. As Beverly drove away, Ryan went inside and poured himself a glass of wine, the first alcohol he'd actually consumed in weeks. Tomorrow, He'd start making arrangements for his child's future, including trust funds and education plans. He'd be the best father he could be, despite the circumstances. But he'd never again be a husband to someone who'd proven that love, loyalty, and honor were commodities to be traded for the right price. Some lessons, Ryan had learned, could only be taught through consequences. And some betrayals created wounds that were meant to scar, not heal, because scars reminded you never to make the same mistake twice. Chapter 8. The Final Judgment. 6 months later, Ryan sat in the federal courthouse watching Troy Brennan receive a 25-year sentence for espionage, money laundering, and conspiracy against the United States. Brennan looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, his privileged arrogance replaced by the hollow-eyed resignation of a man who'd finally faced real consequences. "Does the defendant have anything to say before sentencing?" Judge Morrison asked. Troy stood slowly. "Your Honor, I want to apologize to Mr. Fletcher for the damage I've caused to his marriage and his business. I let greed cloud my judgment, and I'm truly sorry." Ryan felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no pity. Troy Brennan had become irrelevant the moment the handcuffs clicked shut. The following week, it was Chloe's turn. 7 months pregnant now, she sat at the defendant's table in a loose-fitting dress that couldn't hide her condition. She'd taken the plea deal, testifying against her co-conspirators in exchange for a reduced sentence. "Mrs. Fletcher," Judge Morrison began, "you've pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage and theft of classified materials. Before I pronounce sentence, I want to understand something. You betrayed your husband, a man who by all accounts loved and trusted you completely. You sold classified information to foreign agents. You put American national security at risk. All for money. Help me understand how someone makes those choices." Chloe stood with difficulty, her pregnancy making movement awkward. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Your Honor, I convinced myself I was protecting my family's business. I told myself that Ryan would never find out, that no one would get hurt. I was wrong about everything. Do you have anything to say to your husband?" Chloe turned to look at Ryan for the first time since the arrest. Her eyes were red with tears, her face puffy from stress and pregnancy. "Ryan, I know you'll never forgive me. I know I destroyed everything good in my life for money and status. I know our child will grow up knowing what their mother did. I just want you to know that I understand now what I gave up, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Judge Morrison looked at Ryan. "Mr. Fletcher, as the victim in this case, you have the right to make a statement before sentencing." Ryan stood slowly. He'd prepared for this moment for months. But now that it was here, he found himself thinking about the 8-year-old boy who'd been shuffled from family to family, always hoping the next one would be permanent. "Your Honor, Chloe Fletcher made choices that revealed who she really is when tested. She chose money over marriage, betrayal over loyalty, treason over honor. Those weren't mistakes, they were character revelations." He turned to look at Chloe directly. "I gave you 7 years of absolute loyalty. I loved you, protected you, provided for you, and tried to build a life with you. You threw all of that away for a man you barely knew and money you didn't earn. You didn't just betray our marriage, you betrayed our country." Chloe was sobbing now, but Ryan continued without emotion. "I want you to understand something, Chloe. I don't forgive you. I will never forgive you. And I will never take you back, no matter how long you're in prison or how sorry you become. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed." "Mr. Fletcher," the judge said gently, "what about your child? Our child will know the truth about what their mother did. They'll also know that I'll be there for them every day, providing the stability and honor their mother couldn't. I'll teach them that loyalty matters, that honor matters, that some things are more important than money or status." Judge Morrison nodded. "Chloe Fletcher, I sentence you to 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole in 5 years. Your child will be born in the prison medical facility, and custody arrangements will be determined by family court." As the bailiffs led Chloe away, she looked back one final time. Ryan met her eyes with the same cold expression he'd worn the day she was arrested. She'd made her choice. Now she could live with the consequences. Outside the courthouse, Beverly Peterson was waiting with Amanda and their father, Richard. They approached Ryan cautiously, like people approaching a dangerous animal. "Ryan," Richard said, "we want to discuss the baby. Our grandchild. What about it? We'd like to be involved. We know we made mistakes, But that child is still Peterson blood. Ryan looked at the three people who had spent years making him feel like an outsider in his own marriage, who had helped orchestrate his betrayal, who still talked about Peterson blood, as if genetics mattered more than character. The child will know about their mother's family, Ryan said finally. They'll know about their Peterson heritage. But they'll be raised with Fletcher values, loyalty, honor, integrity. Things your family never understood. Ryan, please, Amanda said. We're family. No, Amanda. Your DNA. Family is about loyalty, trust, and unconditional love. You traded those things for money and status. The Peterson family destroyed itself when it chose betrayal over loyalty. As they drove away, Ryan felt a profound sense of closure. He'd spent 7 years trying to earn acceptance from people who would never value the things he considered most important. Now he was free to build something better. 3 months later, Ryan stood in the prison medical facility holding his son, David Fletcher, named after his lawyer, who'd become one of the few people Ryan trusted completely. The baby was perfect, healthy, and completely innocent of his mother's crimes. Chloe lay in the hospital bed, still handcuffed to the rail, watching Ryan hold their child. He's beautiful, she whispered. Yes, he is. Ryan, I know you hate me, but please don't let him hate me. Whatever I've done, I love him already. Ryan looked at the woman who had once been his wife, now reduced to an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, and felt something unexpected, not forgiveness, but a kind of distant pity. Chloe, David will know the truth about what you did, but I won't poison him against you. If you serve your time and prove you've changed, you can have a relationship with him when you get out. But you'll never have a relationship with me. I understand. As Ryan left the prison with his son, he thought about the family he was going to build. David Fletcher would grow up knowing that honor mattered more than money, that loyalty was sacred, and that some betrayals could never be forgiven or forgotten. But he'd also grow up knowing that his father would never abandon him, never trade him for something better, never consider him disposable. Some lessons, Ryan had learned, were worth teaching through example rather than words. Chapter 9, Blood, Honor, and New Beginnings. 5 years later, Ryan stood in his backyard watching 4-year-old David kick a soccer ball with the determination of a child who'd inherited his father's focus. The boy had Chloe's blonde hair, but Ryan's intense gray eyes, and a personality that was entirely his own, stubborn, curious, and fiercely loyal to the people he loved. Daddy, watch this, David called out, attempting a kick that sent the ball sailing over the fence into the neighbor's yard. Impressive distance, Ryan said with a smile. Maybe work on accuracy next. Life had become good in ways Ryan had never expected. Fletcher Security had grown into one of the premier consulting firms on the West Coast, with clients who respected Ryan's reputation for integrity and discretion. He'd bought a house in a neighborhood with good schools and families who valued the same things he did. Most importantly, he'd learned to trust again, carefully, selectively, but genuinely. His phone rang as David chased after another ball. The number was familiar but unexpected. Mr. Fletcher? This is Attorney Walsh. I represented your ex-wife. What can I do for you? Chloe is eligible for parole next month. She's asked me to contact you about visitation with David. Ryan watched his son playing, innocent and happy, and felt the familiar cold settle in his chest. Has she served her full sentence? She served 5 years of an 8-year sentence. She's been a model prisoner, earned her GED and a bachelor's degree, and completed extensive counseling programs. That's good for her. But my answer is no. Mr. Fletcher, she's his mother. She has rights. She has the rights that a federal judge determined she should have after she committed treason against her own country. I'm not required to facilitate anything beyond what's court-ordered. Sir, she's changed. She understands what she did wrong, and she wants to make amends. Ryan thought about Tommy Henderson, the boy who'd stolen from neighbors and blamed him, whose family had thrown Ryan away without question. People revealed who they were under pressure. They didn't fundamentally change. Mr. Walsh, when David is old enough to understand what his mother did and chooses to have a relationship with her, I won't interfere. But I won't expose a 4-year-old to someone who put money and status above every other value in her life. She's asking for one meeting. Supervised. Just to see him. No. That evening, after David was asleep, Ryan sat in his study reviewing the quarterly reports for Fletcher Security. The business had tripled in size since Chloe's arrest, partly because of the publicity, but mostly because Ryan's reputation for handling sensitive situations with absolute discretion had spread throughout government and corporate circles. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ryan, this is Chloe. I got your number from Amanda. Please, I just want to see my son for 1 hour. I know I don't deserve it, but he's all I have left." Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Part of him, the part that remembered loving her, felt a flicker of sympathy for a woman who'd lost everything because of her choices. But a larger part remembered the birthday party he wasn't invited to, the mother-in-law who'd smirked about real family, the months of lies and betrayal. He typed back, "David is not your consolation prize for making bad choices. You gave up the right to be his mother when you chose espionage over family. Don't contact me again." The response came immediately. "I know you hate me, and I deserve it. But please don't punish David for my mistakes. He needs his mother." Ryan's jaw clenched as he typed. "David needs stability, loyalty, and unconditional love. You proved you're incapable of providing any of those things. He has a family that puts his needs first. That's not you. Ryan, please. I'll do anything to make this right." "Chloe, there is no making this right. You didn't make a mistake. You made a series of choices over months that revealed who you really are. David deserves better than someone who trades away their family for money." The text stopped after that, but Ryan knew this wouldn't be the end. Chloe would eventually get out of prison, and the legal system would likely grant her some form of supervised visitation. When that day came, Ryan would comply with court orders, but nothing more. 2 weeks later, Beverly Peterson called, the first contact he'd had with any of them since the courthouse. "Ryan, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I'm calling about David. He's my grandson, and I've missed 5 years of his life. Beverly, you helped steal classified information from me and spy on me in my own home. You taught your daughter that people like me were disposable. Why would I trust you with my son? Because I've learned from our mistakes. The family business failed anyway. We lost everything. I understand now that we were wrong about you, wrong about what really matters. You're only calling because you lost your money and your daughter is in prison. If things had gone according to plan, you'd never have given me another thought. Ryan, please. I'm an old woman who's lost everything. My grandson is the only family I have left." Ryan thought about David, who asked questions about grandparents when he saw other families. The boy deserved to know where he came from, even if those people had proven themselves unworthy of trust. "Beverly, if David ever asks to meet you, I won't stop him. But that's his choice to make when he's old enough to understand what kind of people he's meeting." What does that mean? It means that when David is old enough to understand that his mother committed treason and his grandmother helped her do it, he can decide for himself whether he wants a relationship with you. But I won't subject a 4-year-old to people who value money more than loyalty. Ryan, we're family. No, Beverly. You made it very clear 7 years ago that I wasn't real family. Blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does. Honor does. Trust does. You traded all of those things away. That evening, as Ryan tucked David into bed, the boy asked the question that had been coming more frequently. "Daddy, why don't I have a mommy like the other kids?" Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, looking at his son's innocent face. "You do have a mommy, David. She just made some bad choices and has to live somewhere else for a while." "Is she mean?" "No, buddy. She's not mean. She chose things that were wrong, and now she has to face the consequences." "Will I ever meet her?" "Maybe someday, when you're older and can understand the whole story." "Do you miss her?" Ryan thought about the question. Did he miss the woman he'd married, or the illusion he'd believed in? "I miss who I thought she was. But people are who they really are when they're tested, David. And when your mommy was tested, she chose money over family. That's sad." "Yes, it is. But it's also why you and I have each other, and why we'll always choose family first." As David drifted off to sleep, Ryan made a silent promise to his son. David Fletcher would grow up knowing that loyalty was sacred, that honor mattered more than money, and that some people, no matter how much you loved them, would betray you if the price was right. But he'd also grow up knowing that his father would never abandon him, never trade him for something better, never consider him disposable. Some legacies were worth protecting, and some lessons were worth teaching through a lifetime of example. Ryan Fletcher had learned that family wasn't about blood. It was about choosing to be loyal when loyalty was difficult, staying committed when commitment was tested, and putting honor above convenience. David would learn those same lessons, but he'd learned them from a father who valued him above everything else. And that, Ryan thought as he turned off the light, was how real families were built. Years later, when David Fletcher was old enough to understand the full story of his mother's betrayal and his father's response, he would make his own choices about forgiveness and family. But he would make them knowing that some values, loyalty, honor, integrity, were non-negotiable, and that some betrayals revealed character so completely that they could never be forgotten or forgiven. Ryan Fletcher had learned that the strongest families weren't built on blood or tradition, but on mutual respect, unwavering loyalty, and the understanding that love without honor was just sentiment. It was a lesson worth teaching and a legacy worth leaving.